Hey everybody. All right.
Hello.
All right. We are live on Facebook. My name is Wesley from Adolescent Family and Behavioral Health. I want to apologize. We are having a lot of technical issues here, but that's why I went ahead and went live on my page. So if you can go to Wesley Morgan and all of those who are viewing, please share this posting and share this video, this live feed, and we would like to get started. Again, sorry for starting late, but it was things out of our control. But we're glad that you are joining us. We do have a Facebook audience joining us now. We're seeing all of the comments, so we're happy that you're here with us tonight. So the purpose of our forum tonight is to discuss the series that everyone is talking about, which is 13 Reasons Why. It's a Netflix series, and it's a lot of information that we're going to cover tonight. So you're in for a treat. We're going to take our time. We will probably extend the time since we started late, but we're just going to go with the flow, and that's what we typically do. We have decided to forego all the formal introductions and all of our accomplishments and degrees, but it would be wrong for me to start this discussion and not at least introduce the wonderful people that I work with. And to my right, I believe your left, we have Renee. Renee, if you can wave at the people, that would be great. We have Ashley here.
Hi.
And we have Marshall here.
Hello.
And we have Dr. Valencia Adney here.
Hello.
All right. And we're located here in the wonderful city of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And we just want to take care of a few housekeeping items. We do have our registrants in. They're watching us via from the webinar. So we're going to ask them if they can possibly mute their phones and mute their computers. Another thing, housekeeping item, we're going to ask if you answer all of the questions that we have received via the webinar. And for those of you who are on Facebook and have questions, we're going to also address those questions at the end of our presentation. So feel free, shoot us some emails and we'll do our best to answer them. All right? Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready too. Well, this is what you can expect from our forum tonight. A little overview of the Netflix series. We're going to provide you with an overview. We're also going to discuss the controversies and dangers of the Netflix series and different teachable moments that could have been added to the series. And we want to give you a little bit of information about suicide prevention, a few coping techniques. How do you have a conversation with your team about suicide prevention, drugs, alcohol? We're going to get into that as well. And we're going to do our best to save the last 30 minutes to do some question and answering. So, all right. So, Renee, a lot of talk has been going on about 13 Reasons Why. Can you provide the people with some sort of overview of 13 Reasons Why?
Okay, so here's a quick overview just in case you're one of the few people who hasn't seen it. Teenager Clay Jensen returns home from school to find a mysterious box lying on his porch. Inside he discovers 7 double-sided cassette tapes recorded by Hannah Baker, his classmate he had a crush on, who tragically committed suicide 2 weeks earlier. On tape, Hannah unfolds an emotional audio diary detailing the 13 reasons why she decided to end her life. Her instructions are clear. Each person who receives a package is one of the reasons why she killed herself. And after each person has completed listening to the tapes, they must pass the package on to the next person. If anyone decides to break the chain, a separate set of tapes will be released to the public. The series covered topics of drunk driving, lost friendship, hurting someone's reputation, stalking, sexual assault, and rape.
Wow, sounds like an interesting series. When I watched the series, there was a lot of controversial things that I saw as a therapist, and I know you all saw the series, and I want Dr. Adney actually to touch that. What are some of the controversies and the dangers that you saw throughout the series?
get my screen back up here. So some of the controversies, some of the main controversies are just the fact that there can be copycat attempts from the movie, teens that will want to do the same things, and we ourselves, what prompted us to want to do this is because we've seen the impact it has had on our practice, and we felt the need to address it. But the controversies can start right at the very beginning of the movie, where they give a viewer discretion warning at episode 9 rather than at episode 1. And we figure by the time they get to episode 9, people are sucked into the series, teens are sucked in, and they don't necessarily know all the graphic things that are about to come. So a controversy in the mental health community has been that there should be a warning at the beginning. Also, the series glamorizes suicide, and it makes it as though you can have a revenge suicide and tell your story from the grave rather than telling your story while you're alive. And in addition, with suicide, the way that it was depicted and being so graphic and kids being able to see it over and over, there's research that shows that actually can increase the rate of suicide. While the suicide is graphic itself, some of us have seen the suicides. I've had parents that have said they've seen it in the movie. You know, one mom said she fell to her knees crying after seeing it. It was so graphic. Or where we ourselves were in a state of mind of, like, we do not want to watch such a graphic suicide. So it is very graphic. And someone who's already high risk and suffering, it's difficult. In another controversy is that in the book itself, Hannah took pills for suicide versus a bathtub method, cutting her wrist. Another controversy is that the series focuses on the bullying that contributed to the suicide, but it does not talk about the mental health that contributed to it. It doesn't talk about that suicide is the second leading cause of death for teenagers. And they could have done that at the beginning of each episode, is offered some resources, offered some helplines, and that information was not made available to teens or parents. Other controversial issues is the series can be very triggering. So anyone who has experienced a sexual assault, who has been abused, bullied, depressed, has a history of attempting suicide, this series can be a huge trigger for them. The series highlights consequences of bystanders watching incidents take place and doing nothing, and we know just from things that have been in the news, like the rape that took place on Facebook, that people watched and did nothing. So there were no suggestions as what to do. The series does not offer any solutions, any coping skills. It just is all about blaming others rather than addressing the mental health issues. And as counselors, we really could not let it go that they poorly depicted counselors. If any of you are school counselors out there or therapists, and you've seen that, you probably cringed at how the therapists handled things. And as therapists, that's controversial. We want teens to know that is not how we handle things when they come and they say, I've been bullied, or like in the movie, someone pulled my pants down, or that I feel like taking my life, that we don't place blame and ignore it. That the therapists, that what we do is we look at biological factors, psychological factors, past history, of clients, because those are the things that will help us identify the level of risk of someone who's suicidal. The additional reasons is the movie or the series did not address alternatives to suicide, and the focus was on blaming others. The responsibility was on everyone else. They also had a memorial at the student's locker, Hannah's locker, that committed suicide, and we know that when there's been a suicide, that would be a way of glamorizing it within the school, so that's not recommended. And there was a failure of adults to respond appropriately to many of the situations. Namely, they started working on prevention before mourning, and we would encourage schools and parents that if you know of a suicide, before jumping to prevention, allow the students or other people to grieve. And then there were several topics in the series about bullying, rape, drunk driving, slut shaming. They were all mentioned, but there weren't answers or support. And finally, we want parents to be aware that if you don't already know, teens like to binge watch Netflix, and this is not a series to binge watch. There should be time to process what's happening.
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot of different things, and thank you for sharing that. There was also what we like to call teachable moments that we would like to talk about. And Marshall, if you can cover a few of the teachable moments, and we can just talk about it, a few teachable moments that we all noticed as well. So some of the things that you noticed that we need to highlight.
There were quite a few opportunities in the series, and one being Hannah's parents talked about how she gets moody. That would have been a time for them to maybe have a conversation with their daughter. Why is she moody? It's so important that we know what's going on with our children, that we're able to have a conversation with them. We're able to, as the young people say, chop it up. You know, that they feel relaxed enough to be able to come to their parents and tell them what's going on, because we're all affected by what we do and what happens to us. And sometimes what happens to us is unfair, hurtful, or even severely traumatizing. And those things addressed in the series, such as bullying, rumors, and sexual assault, affects mental health. That affects your child. And so there were missed opportunities. And those opportunities was the fact that the parent noticed something was wrong with her daughter, or the dad noticed that there was something wrong, and they never had a conversation.
Right. No conversations about it.
And actually, what did you notice?
So one of the things I noticed was also that Clay's mood was changing kind of as the show progressed, as he was viewing or listening to the tapes. And at one point, Clay's parents at breakfast give him a bottle of medications. It's just kind of sitting there at where he's sitting. And that's something that we wouldn't want to do. We wouldn't want to just hand over meds when we're seeing things. Now, we know from that show that Clay previously had been seeing a therapist, and that he was having nightmares, he was having some issues, but it had been a while since that had happened. And so before just handing over medications, we need to make sure to have a discussion with our kid. Like, what is going on? How are you feeling? What's happening? And encourage them to talk to the doctor or see a therapist again. Because one of the things that you have to be careful with is if your teen is suicidal and they do start taking meds without any discretion from a treatment provider, that could make them feel good enough to actually act on the impulses that are happening, which could have very, very dire consequences, and it's not something that we would want to see.
One thing I noticed that I believe is a teachable moment is a lot of the kids kept everything to themselves.
They did.
They never addressed an adult and said what was going on. When Hannah tried, the counselor, fumbled big time and didn't provide her with the support that she needed. And so oftentimes, and we hear it in our own office every day, different, how challenging it is to open up to parents or to an adult. So I think a teachable moment really will be, I guess I'm addressing this more so to young adults, young adolescents, particularly in children, that it's okay to report up. I have a rule. Anytime something goes on, always report up. And there was a lot of things, from drugs, from rape, a lot of things that was happening in this series, and they never reported up. Clay did say to his mother at the end that he was going to tell her everything when he can, later. But look how long of a time period that was.
Right.
Other teachable moments. I think there was a lot of things that we can really.
I think the friends missed opportunities that they, as you said, they kept the things that were happening private and to themselves. I mean, in Hannah's case, she didn't tell anyone else.
Yeah.
But there were many other things going on in the series, and the kids just kept it to themselves. And friends didn't even do anything about it in instances that they knew something was up. I think Justin, in one episode, he was kicked out of his home, didn't have anywhere else to go, and no one asked, what's happening? Why are you here? Why don't you have some place to go? So I think that was a missed opportunity, that friends just didn't even bother to check in with each other, or to go and say to the school, or to say to the principal, or to their own parents, hey, guess what? Hannah really seems down today, or Clay doesn't seem to be normal. They didn't do anything. So friends missed opportunities.
Yeah. And you mentioned missed opportunities. We were talking earlier about how Hannah missed the opportunity as well for her story to be heard. While she was alive and she could have talked to someone versus waiting until she's gone,
Right.
she's dead. And really, that's a teachable moment. Your story cannot be heard when you're not here. If I'm going to tell you a story about my life, I prefer it come from me and from my own lips versus someone else's perspective of me. Even though you really can't force anyone to listen to your story, but I think it's important for you to share your story.
She missed an opportunity to share.
Mm-hmm.
And for things, instead of trying to teach people a lesson after she was gone, or to have some revenge suicide thing happening, she missed a chance for things to be changed while she was alive.
Yeah. And I think also timing is important. We see throughout the series that Clay's parents tried several times to talk. I mean, well, yeah.
Throughout
You said
the
multiple.
series.
throughout every tape that was on display, there was multiple attempts made by his parents. However, they kept missing the right opportunity, or the approach was wrong. So a teachable moment for me, I will say, parents, don't stop talking. Yes, your kid may turn their back and shut down, but don't stop talking to your kid. What would you say about, how would you address that? Any of you?
I would encourage, if you can't get your child to talk to you, I would encourage you to have the child see a therapist, to receive a diagnosis, to communicate with the school, create a plan. If you as a parent don't be a role model and say, okay, if there's a stigma attached to seeing a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
you need to take that away, because what your child, your adolescent, your teen is important to you. And they don't always know who to talk to. We want to let them know that it's okay. You have somebody to talk to. You don't have to carry this burden alone. We're here to help you. We're in the helping field. That's what counselors do. We want to help you.
And so you're basically saying seek help, a teachable moment.
Exactly.
Because we didn't see that. We didn't see that in the series. I know I didn't. I don't know if y'all saw something different, but I did not see where Hannah, any of the kids, really sought help for what was going on. So that was something. That's something that's really important that we need to take note of and encourage our kids, encourage even the parents and even the staff. One thing that stood out to me. Remember the teacher? She went and spoke to the counselor, but he more so said like keep it under the rug.
Right.
It appears
He told her, don't say anything to anybody else about this.
right.
Yet the teacher herself was saying, I had Hannah in class with me, and it's hard. When I look over at her desk, and she was told, don't talk about that, keep it under wraps.
Yeah. And so it's not just kids, us too, adults. I believe we have a few social workers that are listening in that work in the public school system. So always report up, always continue the conversation. This really is going to help us talk about the next thing. I'm really excited about this next part because during the series we saw Clay parents, they continue to try to talk to him over and over again. And yet we saw a persistence with them, but they wasn't able to connect. One of the biggest things we hear as therapists is that, how do I get my child to talk to me? My child don't want to talk to me. My child spend more time playing video games or texting, or they have their friends at school, so I don't know how to connect to my child. So we want to take a few minutes really and talk about how do you talk with your team about the things that you saw in this series. 13 reasons why. What are some of the talking points? Some things that you noticed that a parent can take away and talk to their child about. Anybody.
I think one of the first things is that parents have asked that is a talking point is that the fact that the series is a talking point within itself, and we question, should we say anything about it? Should we not say something? And we're all parents, and we agreed we would want to know about the Netflix series. And we know that teens are going to see it with or without your permission, with or without your blessings. Someone's going to mention it. You can take away every device they have, but you can't go take away the devices at other kids' houses or computers at schools. So they're going to somehow be exposed to it. So we're recommending that rather than telling your kids to not watch it, to know what your child's mental state is first, and then determine whether you should watch it with them. Because if you can watch it with them, you can educate them along the way. You can control the flow of the series. You can prevent them from binge watching it, hopefully, if you're watching it along with them. So it gives you a chance to just talk with them
You can
about
see
it.
how they're reacting to it, and if they're handling it all right.
Right, yeah, their reactions. You'll notice if they flinch or if they raise an eyebrow or if they start to cry. You will notice their reactions. So I think that's important.
And even maybe asking your child, is this something you're saying at school? That's an easy way to bring up the conversation versus drilling them about what they're doing at school. Have you tried drugs? Have you had sex? Maybe take some of these pointers and talk to them and say, do you see any of these things at school? I cut you off.
I don't even remember where I was going to go, but
Sorry.
going to a next point, like if you see them exhibiting any of the warning signs, don't be afraid to ask them about it and to put it right out there and to talk to them, because that putting it right out there is what needs to happen. And
Because it won't become suicidal. If you ask, are you feeling suicidal, or do you have friends that that you think have the warning signs, it's not going to make them go commit suicide.
Exactly. Raising the issue does not increase the
But some
risk. It
reasons
doesn't
might,
plant the idea in their heads. It creates an opportunity to offer them some help, to give them what they need, to acknowledge what's happening with them.
What do you do? Well, let me rephrase that. So I'm basically hearing you say have a conversation.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be the theme of our night. Really have a conversation with your child, with an adult, a mentor, your youth group at church, whoever. Have a conversation. Maybe we can put that on Facebook. Hashtag have a conversation, because it's very important. And when you're talking with your teens about 13 reasons why, a lot of things, there's a lot of serious moments that we really need to highlight. And one example that I would like to point out is how all of the friends noticed something was going on. They noticed different behaviors. And sometimes kids do not know what to do. So let's say I'm in high school and I notice that my friend is depressed and they're cutting. Okay? That's a warning sign. What should I do because my friend is going through? What should I do? What would you recommend?
Report it. Tell your own parents. You know what? Mom, Dad, my friend Johnny is depressed or Susie is depressed and I noticed that they've been cutting.
But what if my friends say, Wesley, don't tell nobody. Keep this between me and you.
I
respect our friendship.
Is what I would go back to in trying to talk with parents is that, can you handle it if Wesley kills himself? Will you be able to handle the guilt? Will you be able to handle the grief, knowing that Wesley was self-injuring, knowing that he was depressed, and you said nothing? If a friend asks you to keep a secret that there's going to be a surprise birthday party and everybody's going to know later, parents are going to know, okay, that's an okay secret. If it's a secret what mom's getting for Mother's Day, that's an okay secret. But a secret that involves hurt, harm, and danger, those aren't ever okay to keep. And a friend may ask you, but I would much rather have a friend who is alive and can get help and who's ticked off with me than having to attend a funeral. So that's something that parents can share with the kids, is that they still need to tell. It's difficult, but if we teach them that they need to tell, it makes it easier when they're in the situation and they don't have to try and figure out what should I do. They already know. I should tell. Don't ask me to keep that secret. I can't.
So I'm a parent, and let's pretend that my 3 children are teenagers now, right? And they come to me with some heavy information about what's going on at school, but I'm kind of judging them, and I don't know if I should take them at their word. How should I react as a parent if my interaction with my kids, let me just put it out there, I don't have a good relationship with my kids. So how should I have this conversation that we're promoting, saying talk to your kids, without maybe judging them or having my own critique about what they're telling you? What would you say, Renee?
I think reaching out to the school, I'm not exactly sure what the kid's telling you, but if
Bad
you're
news.
concerned about stuff, you could reach out to the school to see, are they acting a certain way? Are they looking withdrawn? Are there concerns at school? Grades dropping, different things they're seeing, so you can kind of help decide if this is really a concern or a problem you should address.
So if I heard you right, if I'm having a hard time really relating and talking to my child, contact the school and see the teachers to see if they notice any difference in behavior, grades dropping, social interactions.
Right. I also think it helps to know who your kids' friends are, because that's really important too, to talk to their friends possibly if you have a relationship with them, to see if they are concerned at all.
Okay.
I think too important when you're talking to your kids and when your relationship is in chaos or struggling and it's not great, to try to listen to your kids without judgment.
Right.
To be fully in the moment with them and just listen to what they have to say and what they're telling you, putting your own feelings aside so that you can look at the situation and say, what do I need to do next? Really listen to what they're hearing instead of jumping to conclusions about what they're saying. Because I think we often do that as parents. Like, we hear trigger things and then we're off and running to something different, and we didn't pause and just hear and be there with them.
It keeps you from being effective when we jump to conclusions. It can be much more effective in just listening without judgment and offering validations.
And checking in with the school. I mean, if they're saying this certain thing is happening at the school, just checking in with the school. Like, did this thing happen? Doing some fact checking around it to figure out, is this happening? Is this not happening? So the more people you can talk with about it, the better.
So you're saying be proactive instead of reacting, waiting till something happens. But if we're proactive, we're in tune with what's going on in their lives. Because I often hear clients say, I was talking to my mom, I was talking to my dad, but they really were not listening to me. They were checking emails, they were talking about work. I told them, but they really didn't hear me. So, or I'll hear other teens say, I wish I could talk to my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's great that you, or I've heard even my own children say, their friends say, it's great that you can talk to your mom like that. I wish I could talk to my mom that way.
Yeah, another thing that I think makes it hard nowadays is we're so focused on electronics. Like, we've all got cell phones sitting here, there's devices everywhere, and often we're communicating with our families via text message and on Facebook. And when you do that, it leaves so much to the unknown. You can misinterpret things, think that your child is fine, but really it's a cry for help, but you don't really see it because it's just in that word form. And so taking time to have face-to-face conversations as well and be present.
So how do I as a parent, this is a curveball question, all of this information, you say, oh no, all this information sounds great, but my relationship with my kids, hypothetically, I'm a single parent, okay, and me and my son is not getting along. Okay, I'm hearing parent involvement. I'm hearing have a conversation, know who my son's friends are, but my son is not allowing me to be engaged in that part of his life. What do I do now? Because parents want to know this.
I think that even if kids aren't telling you everything, being present, you can learn and know things about your kids just by being emotionally engaged, emotionally involved. So you may not tell me who your best friend is, but I'll know where you're going, even if I have to find out where you're going
even
myself.
If you're tracking me on,
even if I have to track you on your phone,
On your
even if I have to put a tracking device on your car, I still have a right to know what you're up to, who your friends are, who your enemies are. And so just by doing that, or if I'm paying attention, I will know when exams come up at school. I will be able to tell that if you're a kid who gets stressed around exam time, or if you're not. I will be aware of what your moods are like, so I'll know something is up. Even if you don't talk to me, I would be able to say or notice when you came in the house, wow, your mood is different than it was when you left earlier today. And you may never tell me, but I still would notice. And parents have a right to spy on their kids. You know, any kids listening are probably going to be really ticked off, but parents have a right to spy on their kids when they have a reason to think that their lives are in danger, and to take steps to protect their kids, because I'd rather have a kid who's alive and mad at me than one who is not, because we have time to work on our relationship later. And so if that's what they need to do, then that's what they need to do. And, you know, come see us. We can tell you all kinds of ways to spy on your kids if you need to, and to track and find out. And then you know, if your child won't talk to you, then you can take them into counseling. Or you can, if you have an auntie or uncle or someone who, a church member, I think we said already, somebody that your child trusts, somebody else that you also trust, that you can allow them to talk with them. Because sometimes your kids won't listen to you, but all of a sudden Uncle Johnny says the exact same thing, and now it's the gospel truth.
Mhm.
But when you said it, you were stupid and you don't know what you're talking about. So that's another way. If your child won't connect, and we already said, keep trying.
Mhm.
Keep trying. It's never too late to try
I think it's
until
important.
they're gone.
It's important for us to be involved. You know, quick bunny trail. There was a video I posted earlier today of a man at a park with his son. He's on his cell phone and he's just texting, and someone came and took his son. It was they did it behind the scenes. They knew it was going to happen, but that proves what you're just saying. Like, as parents, we have to, make time for our kids and really be present in the moment. Because in that moment, that man was all in his phone, and a guy came up and lured the kid away with candy. And just imagine, for example, we have this point. How would you react if your adolescent came home drunk? In the series, I believe it was Clay, came home drunk. And the dad just, oh, well, that's just something boys go through. Do you think that's involvement?
No, because that was an opportunity for a conversation.
Right.
Because in
Missed
that
opportunity.
particular scene, he was forced to drink the alcohol by his friends. So that was an extreme amount of peer pressure. And our kids experience real issues every day. Our teens are facing these issues every day. And so if the parent had a conversation, they would have known that their child was not just out drinking, that something happened for his behavior to be that way.
Especially because that was completely out of the ordinary for Clay. Like, that was not something that he had been doing or had done in the past, and so it was definitely a huge warning sign that something was going on, and the parents just kind of attributed it to normal teenage behavior, when really, with everything that had been going on, this was a major change for him to come home like that.
Not to mention, in the series, they tried to like yelling and saying, here's what you need to do. He threw up on the table. So I know that, what I would recommend to parents, if you have a teen that comes home drunk, that's not the opportunity to have life lessons with them.
Definitely not.
It would be the next day, have a conversation, and maybe they would have found out he was pressured into drinking, and drinking that much that he didn't want to, or they would be saying, Clay, what happened? You don't do this. Why did your behaviors change? And they perhaps would have learned a little bit more. That was definitely a teachable moment, a missed opportunity.
And I think another good point in talking with your teens, I guess I want to say this more so as a way of encouragement. Never downplay your child's stress level. And to us, it may seem little because we're adults. We lived through it. We made it. But right now, suicide is high with teens. Drug use, the cutting. It's a lot of things that I personally didn't experience growing up as a teenager that teenagers are going through right now. So even when you're talking with your teen, if they're telling you that they are stressed out, don't judge that. Try to understand it. So no judgment. Instead, implement understanding. Like, okay, share with me how you're stressed out. Because even in the TV series here, Clay had multiple stressors. Hannah had a lot of stressors going on, but there was no conversations being made. No one checked in with them about the stressors. So I believe that's important too. So,
well, Clay's parents tried to check in, and Clay just shut them down. But when he shut them down, they gave up so easily. You know, he says, I don't want to talk. Okay. And then off they go. Or he says, I'm not going to do that. Okay. He says, you know, his dad says, you stink. You know, when's the last time you took a shower? He basically, Clay was like, showers are overrated. You know, do I need to do that every day? But that was out of the norm. And they just let it go. They didn't try and pursue the conversation with him. They missed opportunities.
And rather than like when they have those stressors going on, trying to look at it through their eyes, trying to validate what they're experiencing, spending time trying to understand, because what teens are going through now we didn't go through, and so we aren't going to understand, and that's going to take some extra effort on our part as parents to try to understand better what's happening right now.
When you say what teens are going through now, are you referring to the access to media? The overload?
Technology is, I mean, a major part of it. I mean, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, so many different things, and so many things that is expected of them now, even in school.
Bullying via chat rooms. You have to be in tune with what your children, what your teens are looking at on the computer, on their cell phones. Sometimes they need to unplug.
Yeah. There was one particular scene that I want to address, and then we're going to keep it moving because I want to make sure we leave time for questions and to answer the questions that we receive. And to our Facebook audience, thank you for joining in. We appreciate you, and those who registered, thank you for registering and listening in. I said there was a particular statement that was made, and one of the characters said, suicide is for the weak, and self-harm is what you do instead of killing yourself. Suicide is not a far leap from self-injury. What are you guys' thoughts on that? That was a heavy statement.
I know when I heard it, I cringed and thought, wow, parents need to know that if someone is self-injuring, it's not that far to go from self-injury to suicide, because it already takes a step, an obstacle to pass to just be able to self-injure. So there's only one step after self-injury, and that's suicide. So that's not, that it's not something to be taken lightly, or to even think that suicide is for the weak. So there's like the stigma attached with mental health that because that person committed suicide, they're weak. What about that person committed suicide because they were depressed? And then does that mean you're weak because you're depressed? Does that mean you're weak if you don't have a support system? So I kind of cringed when I heard that and thought, I wouldn't want teens that I see to think that. I want them to address the self-injury, to address suicidal thoughts.
What would you guys say when you said suicide is for the weak? You want to add to that?
I think the community needed to voice their concern regarding this series because of statements like that. We definitely do not want to glorify suicide. And even our church community can go into depth in a different, with a different story concerning suicide. I'd like to see that happen. But it's definitely something that we need to speak to because it affects our community. It has affected our practice. It has affected colleges. I mean, it's all over media, what's happening. So
I would like to say, and we moving on. I would like to say that suicide is not just, the statement was made, suicide is for the weak and self-harm is what you do instead of killing yourself. No, it's not. You do not self-harm instead of committing suicide. You get help, and that's not an option. I know some people choose that as an option, but coming to get help, there's so many wonderful therapists around, places that you can go, people that you can talk to get help. So cutting yourself, attempting to end your life, that's not an option. And I will encourage you to seek help and really try that. We talked about earlier with technology and having FaceTime. I think it's important not just for parents to understand, but more so the kids. Instead of being lost in technology and all of the Snapchat, Facebook, we take more pictures and Twitter, all of these things. Instead of being lost in that, it has its place. I'm not saying it's wrong, but a good balance would be making sure you're engaging with your parents. And parents, you can really help by being role models for your children. Instead of, hey, how was your day? Good, and then walk off, and you're back to your routine, your task as far as sending emails and talking on the phone. Get involved in your child's life. And if you think something is wrong, as we always say, trust your gut. If you just have an inkling that something is not right with my kid, trust your gut, because 9 times out of 10, you're right. Would you guys add anything to that?
I would say, you said about parents can be a role model. I believe that parents can be a role model because we owe it to our kids to show them that we know how to handle situations. If the only way I know how to handle stress is if they see that they've seen suicide within the family, that puts them at greater risk because then suicide becomes an option for handling stressors. If they see that mom or dad don't have outlets for their own stress, that parents aren't doing things to take care of themselves, then they don't have role models. So they need to see us do things like our own relaxation or a girls' night out or the guys' night out or something. They need to see parents take care of themselves and be role models.
We've been talking a lot about suicide, and I want us to go to the suicide prevention. I want us to move to there because I believe it's important for our audience to know some suicide risk factors and some things that they can look out for to help. Maybe it's not even your child, maybe someone in your family. Actually, if you want to share those real quick, that'd be great.
So suicidal ideation rarely just stems from one life event. Generally, there's a lot of different difficulties going on in several areas of somebody's life. Past history, current life events, biological factors, psychological factors, all of those need to be considered when we're talking about the risk associated with that. Some of those things are like different mental conditions that are prevalent with suicide risk in teens. Some of those are major depression, generalized anxiety, eating disorders, substance use disorders, that's just to name a few. And also, other risk factors are if there's been previous suicide attempts, if there's a family history of suicide attempts, is there substance use going on, are they isolating? And that's really just to name a few different ones, but there's quite a few risk factors for teens that we need to be mindful of and be aware of. Having an undiagnosed or untreated or ineffectively treated mental disorder is a risk for people in all age groups. As well as, like, that leads me to different warning signs. So different things to watch out for are changes in mood, like loss of interest and depression, changes in behavior, like isolating from friends and family, and withdrawing from previously enjoyed activities. I feel like that was a huge mouthful.
No, but I think that's good. It's a lot of, you say barriers? Yeah.
So barriers to treatment for teens. So there's lots of things that can get in the way. Like teens might not know what treatment involves. They don't know what to expect, what they're getting themselves into.
I think it's you have to be crazy to need therapy, the stigma.
often teens and adults don't even recognize the symptoms of mental health issues that would bring somebody into treatment. And so just not even recognizing them can be a barrier to that. Often teens think that other adults aren't going to understand, that they're just not going to get it, that they're not going to listen or hear what's really happening with them. And that's something that I feel like we saw in 13 Reasons Why. Like, all of those kids didn't talk to anybody. Generally, some of them did off and on, and at the end, you see some of them coming forward to adults about it, but just not feeling like somebody's going to really understand where you're coming from.
They even took pride in 13 Reasons Why. There was a scene where one of the teens was like, "We did a great job at keeping this from our parents so far.
Let's keep it that way.
Let's keep it that way." And that proved to be dangerous for all of them. Like, they all suffered and paid a price for it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I mean, it's just really shows. This movie really showed, not the series. Excuse me, I keep saying movie. It's not a movie. It's a Netflix series. Let me correct that. It's a lot of barriers, and I think of, growing up, we thought, where I came from, you were crazy if you went to go talk to a therapist. You were considered crazy to go talk to a shrink, and that's pressure for someone who needs to go get help. We have a few things that I would like to address too, but really suicide prevention, on how to talk to your children about that. We discussed being a role model. Parents, family members, and friends can all be important role models. Who else can be a role model? How can you talk to your child about suicide prevention outside of just you as a parent?
Other family members can be role models. People from your church can be a role model. School coaches, basketball coaches, any sport, the coaches can be role models. Having a mentor, there's so many ways that kids can have other outlets for someone to talk to. And maybe as parents, we have to be okay with that my child might not want to tell me everything, but is willing to tell my sister. There were times when my son would be more than willing to tell my sister something, but not tell me. Or be more than willing to, I gotta go give grandma a call and let her know what's up, but I maybe wouldn't have necessarily known. So as parents, we have to be okay with our kids having other forms of other people to talk to.
Mm-hmm. And I think we had someone comment, Mark Staten said on Facebook, there are so many avenues to get help. Suicide doesn't make you weak. I would like to say that even getting help does not make you weak. I will say getting help make you wise.
And strong.
Let me repeat that. That sounds good. Let me stop. I'm just playing. But no, it's the truth. Getting help does not make you weak. Getting help make you wise. And so there's nothing wrong in seeking out help. And so when you're talking to your kids, I think it should be something that you promote. It's nothing wrong with getting help. It's nothing wrong with being different. It's nothing wrong with, if you are experiencing depression, anxiety, it's nothing wrong with that. We all have some type of issue going on, and getting help is the first thing in which we should go about doing that. Even staying calm. Sometimes we can, react as parents. We hear bad news, what we will consider to be bad, and we can react like something like that.
Right.
See, I just scared you. But even when we are engaging with our kids, one thing that we can do as parents is just to stay calm and listen and really focus on trying to understand what your child is saying. Any other things in regards to suicide prevention and how you talk to your child?
Stay with them in the moment. I think often we start, like we've talked about before, jumping to conclusions. And we're out here thinking about the future, catastrophizing of what's going to happen next. And we really just need to be right there in that moment and just listen. Hear what it is they're telling us.
Or problem solving. Not we can jump to the future and make it a whole catastrophic event. And we can also do things like we start trying to fix it because they feel pain. And oh my gosh, you know, my baby can't feel hurt and pain. And so we jump into the problem solving mode, sometimes too quickly. When pain isn't going to kill them, that's what they will do with the pain that could kill them. So being present is huge. Validating. Validating is a way to help us be present.
It's something I want us to spend a little bit more time with, and I'm watching our time. If your child is having thoughts of suicide, what should I do? So, you know, I was using an example. Hypothetically, no, I'm not a single parent, but I'm just using it as an example. But, you know, my child come to me, they're having thoughts of suicide. As a parent, how should I respond to that? You all are therapists.
Well, I think if your child comes to you and says they're having thoughts of suicide, we've already said, stay calm. That's not an opportunity to panic, to fall apart, and, you know, we all know that I'm a crier. So I realize that you're going to have emotions, and they might include a few tears, but it shouldn't end up being a river of tears, because then your child's going to want to take care of you rather than share with you what's going on. And so staying calm and being present, being able to talk about, you know, tell me what that's like, what's happening. Things that we want to know, is it that your child wants to, that they're in a place where they just don't care if they wake up the next day? You know, is it ideation that we call it? Is it that they're just saying, I wish I was never born?
And
if
they
I
don't
didn't
have a
wake
plan
up?
or intent.
Right. Versus, you know what, I'm having suicidal thoughts and I'm thinking about driving my car off the bridge, or I'm thinking about doing X, Y, Z. Then it's a little more lethal, and it's a little more concerning. And definitely, if your child is talking about saying that they feel suicidal, then you're helping them to put a plan in place to be safe. And that plan, you can bet, is going to include seeing a counselor. Because your child needs you to just be a parent to them, not their therapist.
Right.
You know, I can't even be a therapist to my own children. They need me to be a parent. And so I think therapy is at the top of the list.
Just like with the teens, we tell them to report up, and as parents, we're not superheroes. We don't know how to
Right.
handle everything that happens, and when it's something as scary as suicide can be, it's okay to get another person involved and let them run with that expertise and be the ones to decide what needs to happen next. You don't have to know what to do with everything that comes across to you from your teen.
Right.
And I think another thing that we can do is make sure we remove things out of the home, especially when there's intent in the
Definitely.
plan, meaning knives, scissors, razor blades, the whole 9 yards, anything, guns,
fire.
all of those things need to be
Pills.
removed from the home. Can you honestly watch your child 24/7? No, but you can remove all of the things that they can use to end their life out of the home. And when we say out of the home, they're not in your trunk, they're not in your garage. Maybe you should take them to the friends or a sibling house where they're out of reach and your child cannot get to them.
I mean, and I know that there are some people who have weapons in their homes, but there's ways to be safe about it, to have it under lock and key. You know, I think about, like, my brother has weapons, and his kids had to go through safety classes as soon as, like, they could hold something. They needed to start learning about safety. But there's, you know, my point is that he's got things under so many different locks and keys. I don't know how anybody could ever get to anything, because it's like Fort Knox.
Yeah.
And at no point is ammunition and weapons kept together. So things are separately locked in different places. And clearly, you know, parents are going to have to cook. They're going to need to have a knife to cook dinner at some point.
Right.
So you know, they're to rid your house of any possible way of attempts. If a child really wants to attempt suicide, you can't keep them safe 24/7 without them being in residential care.
Mhm.
And so that's then where we would be saying, you can't leave them alone, and if you can't keep them safe, then they need to go to residential program. They need to go inpatient so that somebody else can help keep them safe.
And um, even with your child, if your child is having thoughts of suicide, some crisis things that you can really pay attention to. You may discover a suicide note. Your child may report hearing voices telling them to kill themselves. You're afraid to leave your child alone for fear he or she may attempt suicide. Um, it may be several things. Another crisis. Just I put it like this. Just know there's a lot of support. So even if your child is in crisis, you can take them to the emergency room, a mental health center. I know here at our office, Adolescent Family Behavioral Health Services, we have a crisis phone for the clients that we see that are in crisis. So there's help. There's a lot of help. Even on our slides, we have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. All of these things are free. They're 24/7. You can text now.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Right.
something new. I just
Right.
heard about that one last week. For some odd reason, I did not know that. But you can text and talk to a therapist, even in a moment of crisis. So what we're saying is there's a lot of help out there. Even if you don't know where to start, there's a lot of help. Lamprini, which so happens to be my sister, she commented on Facebook, which is true. They're coming out with season 2 of 13 Reasons Why. And that's going to be starting in 2018. And so we're having this conversation right now because it's very important. And we want to make sure you know that there's resources out there for you. So you can talk with your child, you can talk with your spouse, you can talk with whoever's in the community about suicide prevention. American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, there was something called Look Both Ways. Anyone want to touch that real quick?
I like their look both ways because they're saying look inward and look outward. Look at yourself and look at others. Basically, just look both ways, and it's about kindness and noticing. Not just look at myself and notice what I'm going through or what's happening, but to take a minute and pause and say, you know, wow, Marshall didn't look like she was as happy today. And take a minute and just ask her, is everything okay? To look both ways, not just me, but at the people around me, and to not just look at my outward and say, oh, it looks like everything's going on, but to be aware of what's going on with me internally.
Mhm.
So to look both ways at the people around me, but to look both ways at myself internally and externally.
I think that's very important because we get so lost into ourselves. This is not something that happened here at this practice. I believe I was out of state when this happened to me, but I just said hi to a gentleman, and he came back and ran and told me I just saved his life because nobody was talk to him. So that goes to tell you, look both ways. Even if it's a complete stranger, they're crying. We're not asking you to, become their therapist right there, but just check in and say, hi, is there something I can do for you? Because you never know, you may save that person's life. You may be the only support that they have had in a long time. There's an event that's coming up September 17th, and we would like to invite everybody, especially in the city of Grand Rapids. If you live in Grand Rapids, September 17th, 2017, the Out of Darkness Walk. Dr. Andy, can you share a little bit about the Out of Darkness Walk that's coming up?
This will be our third year doing the Out of Darkness Walk, and it has been fabulous experience both times. It is incredible to see the number of people who turn out and walk in support of suicide prevention. And the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention keep saying that they want to decrease suicides by 20%. And it'd be great if we could say by 100%. But they're able to show the statistics and provide research. And they have, you know, little video clips and everything that they use the money for to go towards suicide prevention. So we would love it if you would go to the website, to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, look up their Out of the Darkness Walk, and be a part of the Adolescent and Family Behavioral Health team and walk with us. We, you know, take pictures and everything as we're there, but it's also points where it's very somber because they have up signs of people who have died and family members and pictures where you can see that this person died and they were 15 and they were 10 years old and teenagers. So a lot of losses, but a lot of people coming together to say, we want to see suicide stop.
Yeah. Last year was my first time participating in the Out of Darkness Walk, and it's powerful. So if you would like to join our team, and when we say join our team, it's just saying promoting the Out of Darkness Walk. We have a team as a staff that will be there. All of us will be there, and we will walk for suicide prevention. You can walk with us.
You can collect funds.
Collect funds. There's a lot of people you can meet. Not saying that you go there to network, but you will meet a lot of families and people who have been affected, unfortunately, by suicide. So join us there. And if you are on Facebook, you can go to our website. And for those who register in viewing our presentation today, you can get the information right off the slides. And we also have information as far as different wallet cards of suicide prevention. And that's something that we can give out to you as well as different warning signs. So it is 8:26, and we want to get to some questions. And we do have a few more things to address. And I'm going to, let's do this. I do want to mention a few things in regards to coping. I think we have to share a few coping techniques with our audience. And then after the coping techniques, we're going right into our questions. So if you are on Facebook, feel free to send your questions. We do see them, and we're going to address the questions that we receive from our registrants as well. So something that we're known for in the city of Grand Rapids is DBT, which is Dialectical Behavioral Therapy. That's what set our practice aside, and that's what makes us different than most practitioners here in the city. And DBT is a style of therapy that has demonstrated to help reduce symptoms as in variety of disorders, symptoms as in depression, anxiety, mood disorders, suicidal behaviors, cutting, and we use DBT in our office as a form of coping, helping individuals to have different other skills that they can rely on instead of cutting themselves and harming themselves. And so one of those skills we like to call is emotion regulation. But before even emotion regulation, it goes, let me back up. Let me tell you what emotion regulation is, first of all, and that should help. So emotion regulation helps us, it's a skill that addresses emotional sensitivity, mood changes, unregulated moods as in depression, anxiety, hostility. And there's a skill within emotion regulation called checking effects. But within a person being, there is three types of mind, which we call emotional mind, wise mind, and reasonable mind. We spend majority of our time in emotional mind. Most of our decisions, like the one I made this morning, was emotional because I used my emotions to purchase a donut. That's me ratting on myself. But no, but it was an emotional decision, okay? And so when you think about self-harm, when you think about depression, when you think about suicidal thoughts, a lot of these things go hand in hand with our emotional state. And then, so when we look at emotion regulation, there's something called checking effects. And it's a skill. And it's hard to problem solve an emotion situation if you don't have your facts straight. And sometimes just knowing true facts can change how you feel. So something that we do here at Adolescent Family, and that's something that's in regards to DBT, how you can really do fact checking with your emotions. Now, are you really going to do this at home? No. You're going to do this with a therapist, a DBT therapist like ourselves. But it will sound something like this. What emotion do I want to change? So let's say I'm dealing with fear. I will say the emotion that I want to change is fear. What was the event prompting my emotion? I will explain in session what happened, what led up to that. And then what are my interpretations? Often our interpretation of an event affects our emotional state. So we're only looking at our situation from a narrow view. So we're looking at it from this perspective. And then, am I assuming a threat? Do I feel as though this is a disaster? The all or nothing thinking. Again, I'm still in our emotional state. So when we look at even reasonable mind, it's going to help us look at the facts. So checking the facts allow us to really address our emotional state. And then at the end, it will say, you can really assess, do my emotion really fit the facts that I gathered throughout during this? What are some other coping skills? That's a DBT. Just wanted to highlight that because we love DBT. I'll mention more about DBT later. But what are some other coping skills that you all use?
One of the things that I like to use most often is mindfulness apps, and one or either like using the DBT diary card. I have clients use that to track their emotions. But I love using Buddhify. I didn't put that up there, but it's Buddhify and Happify or Mind Shift. And the Mind Shift is specifically for anxiety. And Happify is really very educational. Like it tells you why a skill works. So it doesn't just say, here, have pleasant thoughts. It tells you, here's the research behind if you change your thinking. And then it has mindfulness apps or mindfulness activities. So I really like using mindfulness activities because they help keep you grounded, they help keep you aware, and it helps you to process things differently rather than just from an emotional state, so that you can make a wise decision.
Something that I often encourage people to do is journaling as well as talking with someone. Journaling gives you an outlet to get things out on paper, and it's another way to manage how you're feeling and just to vent that in a way that might not be to someone specific. But then also talking with someone, reaching out to someone, letting them know how you're feeling and what's going on with you can be so helpful in the moment.
Yes.
I like having teens listen to music. That's the opposite emotion they're trying to get to. So if they're feeling really sad, try to listen to some happy music. If you're feeling stressed, listen to some music that's relaxing to you, so you can try to move to that opposite emotion.
There's a skill in DBT called the TIP skill, and TIP is the T stands for temperature, the I stands for intense exercise, the P stands for pace breathing, not pace exercise, and the other
what I would do, pace exercise.
Yeah. And then the other P stands for progressive paired muscle relaxation. And again, that's a DBT skill. Ashley mentioned journaling, and something I tried journaling. I hate it, but I love typing. So that's something else that you can do too. And I can't read my handwriting, so that's why I prefer to type anyway. So typing is another coping skill that you can try as well.
I really like the tip one because I tell clients all the time, just the T part of it. You know what? You can easily go in the bathroom and splash some cold water on your face. That's a way to change your temperature, and it gets you out of emotion mind so that you can think clearly. Just buy yourself a window of opportunity to think clearly. So, the idea isn't to freeze your face, it's just throw some cold water on your face.
And that temperature helps the breathing. It helps all of our pulse slow down and things like that.
Yes.
physiological
Yeah,
response.
the biological. Yeah. And then we also have in 2015, 2016, different ways in which we want people to tell us why do you want to live, reasons you want to live. And so maybe if you are in Facebook, maybe you can put this on, reasons for you to live. You may want to live because you want to achieve your goal. You want to see your kids graduate for college. So you can share that as well. I also saw someone, I believe it was my brother, if my sight is right, he shared the suicide prevention page. Today I heard on the news, unfortunately, someone with the state of Michigan took their life, a government employee. So share the suicide prevention line. Please share it. Share this video. And I want us to spend the rest of our time. We had a few questions come in, and let's address those. Question number one. I am a parent and school social worker. My question is, do we bring attention to it so that we can discuss openly, yet it may add to the talk of it? There actually are any teens left that have not seen it. Torn as to whether should bring attention to it or not. I believe the question is just saying, how do we go about bringing attention to this Netflix series, 13 Reasons Why, which I personally believe we're going to need to address it because season 2 is coming in 2018. So
Right.
we can't shy away from it. So how do we address it?
And we fully expect that, based on how this series went, that it's going to be equally graphic and that there's going to be more suicides, gun violence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for a school counselor, it's a little bit different than a parent, because I believe parents can just outright ask, so what have you watched on Netflix lately? Or have you seen 13 Reasons Why? But for a school counselor, there may be like a pandemic or something. If they say it, what they can do is start doing some prevention in the school. And we're often saying to school counselors and to other places that we will come and do a brief presentation. And thankfully, some schools take us up on that.
Mm-hmm.
And we come with suicide prevention cards. And we're ready to do assemblies and things to help them talk about prevention, rather than them saying, hey kids, don't watch 13 Reasons Why, because we know they're going to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a little bit different for a school counselor, but not to shy away from it. If maybe a kid is in their office, to be able to just ask, so, anything new on Netflix? What have you been watching on Netflix? Because if it's 13 Reasons Why, they will tell you.
Yeah. And most
proudly.
And what we have heard, most parents, we are being proactive, or not proactive, reactive, excuse me, where we are reacting to our children, informing us that they have watched the entire series.
Already.
And when they watched it, they binge watch it, and which means they went through with no breaks and watched the whole series. And that's a lot, because it's a danger. You don't have time to process everything that was taking place. So I will say, do not avoid talking about it. Now, there may be a different protocol in regards to being a school social worker that you may have to follow up on, but definitely do not hide away from the conversation, because these are things people are dealing with on a daily basis.
And we've seen it impact our practice. We've seen, because we see high-risk clients, and I realize not every practice may be affected the same way, because they might not have as many high-risk clients or things that are going on. But because we do, in the past couple of weeks, we've had our phones ringing more. We've had more, intense things that are happening with clients. So I don't feel like it's something to shy away from, that it is important for parents to know and other providers to know and take it seriously.
Mm-hmm. Question number 2, and I think we kind of already addressed this a little bit, but we can add a little bit more. What is a parent to do when they try to talk to the kids and they just keep getting pushed away, or no real answer of what is wrong? Don't stop trying.
Don't stop trying.
That's my answer. Don't stop trying. Maybe change your attempt, your approach. instead of trying to ask them what's going on, maybe change the approach from an understanding and say, hey, seems like some things are happening. Let me know. Is it something I can do? Offer your help. Is it something that your friend at school can help you with, or a teacher, or a sibling, an uncle? But never stop trying. Do not throw in the towel. And if you live in the city of Grand Rapids, call our office, and I'll take the responsibility in our office to talk with your child, because you don't stop trying. That's all I can say.
Right.
I want to say more, but
We
I can't.
agree.
But
We all agree. Don't stop trying.
all right. When should parents force counseling? When should parents force counseling?
When you're seeing the warning signs we talked about earlier, for sure,
Mhm.
you need to get them in.
So you're saying when warning signs. What if they?
Mood changes. Grades are changing.
Not sleeping.
Their eating patterns have changed. Sleeping patterns, or strange things like all of a sudden they come home drunk, and that doesn't fit their personality. That's when parents should force counseling.
Mhm.
When they've self-injured the first time that you find out,
Mhm.
even if they tell you it'll never happen again, but if they haven't learned the skills to cope, then what are they going to do again if something happens? They're going to do what they did before, and there was some measure of relief with what they did before, even though it was unhealthy. So, when do you force them? When you see the warning signs, and like you're going, and then leave it up to the counselor to be the one to engage the child or the person that's coming in. That then becomes our role to engage them and have them stick with counseling.
And that was the last, you just mentioned it. That was one of the last questions we received from those who registered was, what should I do if my child will not talk in counseling? I'm very confident in what I do. And I always tell parents, leave that responsibility up to me. And I can crack your kid. May not be this month, may not be next week.
Might take me 5 years.
It doesn't matter. But, I'm not saying this in a prideful way, but that's why we have this degree. So leave that pressure and all of those things up to us, and hopefully, we can help. And I'm saying us as a therapist, and if it's not a good fit, there's a lot of different places you can go. But I'll say try here first. I'm biased.
And I also say encourage parents when kids won't talk in therapy. I will have kids that will be in session with me, and we're having conversations, and we're talking about things, and we walk out of the office, and they walk out with their arms folded. They have a look on their face like, I hate the therapist, I hate you. I even had one kid tell me before, will you please stop talking to my dad when you go out? Why do you always smile and say hi? Because then he thinks that we talk. So sometimes they don't want parents to think that they are participating.
Mhm.
So I'd like to encourage parents to, if you think that they're not talking in session, talk with the therapist and find out if they are.
Mhm.
And don't cut bait and run quickly, because if you transfer children from therapist to therapist to therapist, then they don't ever get a chance to really establish rapport.
Mhm.
But definitely, as you said, if it's not a good fit,
Which would
there's
be
a
like
bazillion therapists.
maybe 6.
One is going to be a good fit.
About 6 sessions, you will be able to tell
Right,
if it's a good fit.
right. 6 sessions is a good way to tell. 2 is not.
Right.
We haven't even established rapport. We just did the paperwork.
Yeah.
I don't see any questions from our Facebook audience, but I do want to say thank you for everyone. First of all, for sharing this video. For those who registered, thank you for registering and being a part of our conversation. We have a lot of resources available for you, so feel free to contact our office. Our contact information is in the comments section. And I want to personally give a shout out to Oxford High School, who's in Michigan, and they responded to the Netflix series 13 Reasons Why with 13 Reasons Why Not. So As I said earlier, season 2 will be starting in 2018. You need resources, you need someone to talk to, please contact our office. We'd be more than welcome to help you out. We have a DBT group for both kids, teens, adolescents, and adults. We have wonderful therapists here that will be waiting to help you out. So other than that, I would just want to say thank you on behalf of our team for joining us tonight, and go and be well. Thanks again. Share the video and have a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.